decorating today, but it's so much more than decorating. So again, as Stacia said, my name is Chris Prater, and we are one of the churches that has the privilege to get to execute this awesome Vacation Bible School curriculum first. And anyways, it's just such a great honor to be here, and you came back. You came back for the afternoon, so that's awesome. So I have the privilege of working with these two crazy characters for over 30 years now. I've been designing stages, working with these guys. Now, not Mr. Matt. So Mr. Matt's about 10 years younger than us, so he came in the loop a little bit later. But Barb and I have been doing Vacation Bible School ever since I was 26 years old. So it was a very long, long time ago. And it is such an honor to be standing strong with a team of people to just carry out the Lord's work. I mean, it's special. You know, you think about that. You think about somebody that you've worked on a project, or even just at your normal work. Let's say you've worked with someone for 5 years. That's special. But when you're doing ministry together and it's going through decades, and multiple decades, I'm telling you, it's a really special thing. So I hope that each of you guys can find something to plug in, to stick with. You know, maybe it's Vacation Bible School, and that's just your thing, and you are committed to it, and there's just one or two or three or, praise God, 4 people that you are in this thing together with, and you stick to it. That's what we need in our churches. We need to be faithful, to stick to things, to take it on through the decades. So Barb and Matt, they're just precious people. You're going to love this video. It's about 3 minutes long.
Travel through time, there's so much to see. From before creation into eternity, you'll be sure to find Jesus doing amazing things. Come along for the ride on the Time Lab Discovery. Let's go! Let's go! Here we go! Let's go! On the Time Lab Discovery. Let's go! Let's go! Here we go! We're making our Time Lab Discovery. Initiating countdown. All systems go. When we search for Jesus, there's so much more to know. So fasten your seatbelts. We'll show you everything. 3, 2, 1. It's a Time Lab Discovery. Let's go! Let's go! Here we go! Let's go! On a Time Lab Discovery. Let's go! Let's go! Here we go! We're making our Time Lab Discovery. Let's go! Let's go! Here we go! Let's go! On a Time Lab Discovery. Let's go! Let's go! Here we go! We're making our Time Lab Discovery. We're making our Time Lab Discovery. We're making our Time Lab Discovery. We'll travel through time on the Time Lab Discovery.
Oh, that is fantastic, isn't it? So I want to share just a little briefly about myself. I have 4 grown kids between the ages of 20 and 30, 2 sons and 2 daughters. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about my heart and why I do Vacation Bible School, why do I love children, and a little bit about my past. So I think testimonies, they're just powerful, aren't they? And when I was a little girl, I was born but with no siblings, had a mom and a dad, and I just thought that life was perfect. I just thought our little family unit was the most amazing thing. And my dad was a vibrant guy. He's an Air Force pilot, and he's just tall and so handsome. And I just thought that I had the most perfect family. Little did I know, my dad was shielding me from a lot of troublesome things in our home, and my mom just had a lot of mental handicap issues. So we were stationed in 3rd grade in Germany, and the entire time we were stationed there, my mom had to be in a mental institution over there in Germany. So this is a lot of years ago. So, these days they probably wouldn't do something like that. But my dad made life fun. And we went and visited my mom was pretty far away in Germany where she was at, and we would go and visit her on weekends, and he made it fun. I mean, I just thought my mom was off at camp getting well, making octopus yarn dolls and making mosaic trivets, and I just thought, she is having all the fun. But anyways, my dad, he kept things lively at home, and what he would do is he would bring home cardboard boxes, and together with that cardboard medium, we would make troll village houses. I mean, trolls have made a comeback, but when I was a kid, they came into existence, and they were so awesome. And we made Barbie doll houses, and he would bring home another box, and we would make something else with that. And I just learned to love cardboard. I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties up here, aren't I? Anyways, when I was 12 years old, my dad passed away, and it was a very sad time, and it was just me and my mom left together, and my mom didn't handle being on her own very well. She probably needed some more medical assistance, but that was not happening. And she just kind of withdrew from life, didn't cook dinner, didn't do anything really. So I was just spiritually deprived and physically deprived. Food was at a minimum. Anyways, and so it was just a very challenging growing up time. I felt different from other kids. I was very lacking in confidence. I think the word to describe how I felt was I just felt invisible. And but then we weathered through all those middle school years and those high school years, and we had a struggling relationship together, her and I. And in case I forget to say how it all ends, my mom, she passed away about 10 years ago, but it ended like the last 15 years of her life, of us having an awesome, reconciled, wonderful mother-daughter time together. And she accepted Christ right before she died, and it was just a truly blessed, awesome time, because that was like the opposite of what I had growing up. But anyways, so I entered my college years, and I decided to study, I was going to do fine arts, until I showed up into a class with nude people and a sketch pad. I'm like, I am out. This is not for me. This does not match me whatsoever. So I went to my guidance counselor and I said, what could I do instead? And they said, why don't you study visual communications? I'm like, sign me up. So I got a design degree in visual communications, and our sophomore year, lo and behold, what was the medium we worked with? It was my beloved cardboard. So our assignments included all things cardboard. We had to make an assignment of 3 raw eggs contained within a structure thrown out of a 3-story building, and if your eggs didn't crack, then you got an A. So, the worst grades happened with the more eggs that were broken. Another assignment that we did was to do a boat. So it was a real large boat to hold 2 people. It was a 2-person team, and we had to design our boat. We had to waterproof our boat all out of cardboard, and then we had to take it to Mirror Lake at Ohio State, and we had to float our boat with the 2 of us inside it. So guess how long mine lasts without sinking? It was like a whopping, I don't know, I think we might have had 20 seconds of awesomeness of our boat floating. Fortunately, if your boat sunk, your grade didn't sink, but it was a good time. But through that assignment, I learned about 4-foot by 8-foot cardboard. So I didn't even know such a thing existed. So through corrugated cardboard companies, there's that 4-foot by 8-foot component, which ideally is the exact same size as plywood, Luan, and things that you can readily get at your hardware store. So anyway, that love of cardboard got to happen my sophomore year in school, but then I graduate from school, I get married, I'm 26, I get married at age 23, but at age 26, I get this awkward knock, knock, knock on our door, and it's this young pastor, and he's knocking on our door, and my husband and I didn't go to church, didn't know anything about anything, and this young pastor knocks on our door, and he's asking us all those pesky questions. You know the ones I'm talking about. Do you think if you were to die tomorrow that you're going to go to heaven? I'm thinking, I am a nice person. Of course I am. So he goes on to explain. And my husband and I, we were like, this is not for us. And, I just praise God because 3 months later, this young pastor came back. And he said, hey, I'm back. Thanks for not having shut the door in my face the first time when I was here. And I'm starting up a Bible study in my home. And you had said that you didn't think you were interested in church, but do you think you would just like to learn a little bit more about the Bible? And so here's me in the background thinking, no! And my husband's like, yeah, I think maybe we would. And so we showed up at this Bible study. And first of all, I told him, I said, there's no way I'm going to that Bible study. You can't drag me to that Bible study. And my husband says, oh, no, we're going. And I'm like, we don't even own a Bible. Honestly, we didn't even know where to buy a Bible. So we showed up at this little Bible study. The pastor and everybody there was so nice, and we asked the pastor where we could get a Bible, and he said, well, just go buy one from Myers. So I don't know if you guys have Myers grocery stores around here, so we trot on over to Myers and we get ourselves a Bible. But, praise the Lord for that. But sitting in a love seat in that Bible study time was Randy and Barb Witt. So they are the leaders of our Vacation Bible School, of which I get to be a part of with them. And God just worked it all out from day one of my faith. I was knit together with that awesome couple. And, they shepherded us. They came alongside us and coached us up and discipleshiped us. And, I just praise the Lord for that. So from the very beginning, we've been a team on this thing called Vacation Bible School. So Barb says, we got to do this little itty bitty VBS. We were at this teeny little church, which probably had 30 people at our first VBS over 30 years ago. And so, lo and behold, I'm the one in charge of our stage design at the time, and I knew all about my 4-foot by 8-foot corrugated sheets of cardboard that were available, a cheap medium. We could do big things with that. We could do little things with that. And it was so funny. My very first vacation, probably the first several Vacation Bible schools that we did, I painted 8 sheets of cardboard, and I was exhausted. It was like, oh my gosh, this is so much work. Serving the Lord is so hard. And, we've come a long way. Now we paint about 220 sheets of 4-foot by 8-foot cardboard, and we deal with about 65 gallons of paint. So we have come a long way. But anyways, I'm just so thankful how the Lord takes things, just little things, like being introduced to cardboard and loving it. And he can take that item and we can use it for his good and his glory, and how he knits people together. He wants us to have a one and a kinship and a teamwork with others. I just praise the Lord for that. All right, well, moving on. Raising up a generation that reveres and seeks the Lord. I bet you guys are thinking, when are we going to ever learn about stage design? Well, it's coming. Don't worry. This won't take long. But our pastor said something about 10 years ago. Pastor Ken Harrell, most amazing preacher. And he said this, and I wrote it in about 1-inch letters in my Bible because I thought it was so amazing. And here's what he said about the future generation. He said, the generation that will change the world is the generation that the world does not change. Now, is that amazing? I'm going to say it one more time. The generation that will change the world is the generation that the world does not change. And that's what I'm in it for. I'm in it for raising up the next generation. I mean, yeah, I'm painting pretty things and designing pretty things as a backdrop for the real work that's going on. But I'm in it so that the next generation can learn about Christ, can learn about Jesus, can have that foundation, can have that kinship with other fellow Christians, to be with other children in a vibrant type of a way. This verse, Psalm 22, verses 30 and 31, don't you love it? Future generations will be told about the Lord. They will proclaim his righteousness, declaring to a people yet unborn. And a translation says this, our children will also serve him. Future generations will hear about the wonders of the Lord. And you know, that's why I do what I do. I am crazy about this next generation, crazy about my own children, and just impressing upon them a passion to work hard for the Lord, and just a passion to serve God and to make church a priority in their lives and as they raise their own kids. So anyways, I got a picture of my youngest. This is my little guy when he's a little baby, so he's my 20-year-old, so his name is Daniel, and you know, he has gone from being a VBS participant to being a VBS leader, and isn't that what we want? And through this curriculum and the whole concept of VBS, all of our Answers in Genesis materials, we have this opportunity to let our children graduate from being attendees to being hardworking workers. And I can't tell you how many moms and dads come up to me and they say, are you Daniel's mom? I'm like, yes. My son loves Daniel. My son wants to grow up and be just like Daniel. And don't you want people to say that about your sons and your daughters? So VBS gives them such a great opportunity to plug in. Daniel's being Daniel in the Lion's Den. I forget what day that was. It was like, I don't know, costume day or something. But praise the Lord for that. So here's an overview of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking quickly at entryways and welcome zones, hallways, classrooms, a little bit about stage design, painting implementation, and painting demos. So it's a full time together. I'm so glad you're all here. So thanks for coming back and being here today and making this a priority. So, entryways and welcome zones. This is your first line of defense. So when somebody walks into your church, you want something vibrant and exciting to greet them. So this was a great year. It was a great year because we're working with a lot of patterns, whether you execute those patterns in black and white or you bring a little color to them. But it's a pretty easy, graphically oriented year. It's not a lot of fussy painting. So it's just a lot of graphic, what I call paint by number type painting. So I find that really exciting that we can use patterns and yet it still looks so dynamic. So here we've got a rocket, a welcome sign, a portion of a clock, and that really awesome green pipes on the left. So we've got some straggler remnants of that over here if you want to do a direct comparison. So when your families come in, we want to assure them that they are in a safe place, a vibrant place, a place that loves children. And my one daughter, Brooke, had a Girl Scout leader named Miss Connie. And so Miss Connie had 2 kids, a son and a daughter. And I'm not kidding, for 8 years or so, I invited her to church. I invited her kids to VBS. Oh my gosh, I pressed hard. And finally, she says, okay, I'll come. She just wanted to shut me up. You know, it's kind of like, Chris is really being a pest. She finally came. She said she walked through the doors. She barely walked through the doors. And she literally never left. So an unchurched family, an unsafe family caught the fever, the Holy Spirit fever of how awesome and vibrant and relevant church can be. And she knew her kids needed a little something extra, and she found that with them. So that was just so exciting. So we're going to look at another entryway and welcome zone. So usually we do a black light entry to enter into our sanctuary. So our kids file through those double doors, and formerly they came through a black light zone into a very large church sanctuary where we had our opening auditorium time. So this year we decided to mix it up, and we generated instead these 18-inch pegboards from the hardware store, like you use in your garage. We painted them white, and we affixed them to the ceiling, and we treated it like a mobile. So we created these 2 walls for which the kids could walk between. And it was our experimental year, because we're the kids going to tug on this stuff, right? I mean, sometimes stuff happens. And it worked. It was awesome. We had a rocket that was painted, and I'm telling you, it's kind of hidden down here, but this is a real inexpensive medium right here, dryer vent. So dryer vents sometimes come in the little stubby pieces. Probably your dryer has a little stubby piece, but buy the ones that are 20 feet long, and you can do crazy things with those. So this is just a small example of that. And again, a look at this welcome zone from a different angle. So hanging in mobile form, we had the test tubes, and you can't get any easier than a strip of cardboard to hang from a mobile, right? I mean, that's awesome. It was so simple. We had some other pattern elements, so just so quickly and so easily you can do things that are just really dynamic and exciting. All right, we're going to get into taking a peek at how we treated our 3 hallways. They each had a theme. The first one we're going to look at is the creation theme. It had a different name. Can't remember what it was. Okay, creation hallway. Yes. So we're going to watch a tiny video about that, and the video explains the puffy clouds in the beginning, but that's all it does. So as you continue down the hallway, you can kind of tell where there's a break with the double door there. It shifted into more jungly look, and so all we did is we just whipped out all these leftover animals that we've got from years past to create an additional animal-oriented theme. We took vines, brown and green paper, crinkled them, tightened them up, and did a lot of draping, but we'll take a peek at that video which talks about the entry.
And then now we are also still in this beginning of time hallway. So in this hallway, what we decided to do was the first 2 days of creation, we kind of just made it clouds in this little section of the hallway, and we used paper lanterns and just got some polyfill and hot glued them to the paper lanterns, and then all you have to do is just have some fishing line and S-hooks, and you just tie it up into the ceiling, and the kids love these. If you see down the hallway, they are a huge, huge hit. So that's just how we made our clouds. You could also, though, if you wanted, you can make them a lot simpler. You could always just do, you know, even paper clouds on poster board or whatever. But these just added a great 3D effect.
All right, thanks, Miss Barb. So hallways, a Bible time theme. So, you know, on the video that we had seen earlier, there was a lot of ideas for what you could do for your hallways. And you know, you might be such a small church that you don't want to address your hallways at all, and that is totally fine. I mean, I've been through lots and lots of early years where it was all we could do to have a teeny tiny little stage. So you guys know best your resources and your people. But the way we did it this very past year, it was the first time we've ever done it that way. We kind of hand selected some people that we thought would be good at that, and each one person was assigned per hallway. So for instance, it was a gentleman in charge of the Bible Times themed hallway and another gal in charge of the space hallway. And then that leader was in charge of rallying their own team to help execute the work. So that was the first time we'd ever done it that way. I thought that that worked really well. So here we're making use of our scene setters. So those scene setters, oh my gosh, it looks so amazing down the hallways. Now it was additionally made look amazing because the guy in charge of this is like a product designer type dude, and he generated out of foam Can you believe that's out of foam? That framework around, and foam is really cool stuff. It's available in sheets. It can be a 1/2 inch wide. It can be thinner. It can be much thicker. But it comes in sheets, lo and behold, just like a piece of plywood or just like a piece of cardboard. And you can sand it, and then you can paint it. Oh my gosh. So it is a great medium if you wanted to adopt something like that. But the scene setters were great because they're so beautiful, and they gave instant awesomeness down that hallway. So we'll watch this video on that.
So here we are again in the Bible time hallway, and just another mention about these scene setters that you can get. So there are 14 of them. There are 7 in the back beginning of time hallway that are all the creation, and then there are 7 that are going through various accounts in the Bible that we actually use during VBS. So this is one of them. We talk about Moses at the burning bush and how the Lord was in there. And so that once again, we pretty much the same idea for the frames. We just colored them a little bit differently. But so these are going down this hallway, and they depict Old Testament times and New Testament times chronologically.
Absolutely, and we've got some palm trees here, and what these are is this is a carpet tube, and if you go to your local carpet store, they usually throw these away, and so you could probably get these for nothing. We've wrapped the carpet tube in butcher paper, used a little bit of a thick rope or a twine here to just kind of make it look like it's a little bit viney, and then this is a painted piece of cardboard. One great tip when you're painting cardboard, outline in black. It makes everything stand out a little bit more. These have just been stapled onto the carpet tube, and you can just use a simple base of a piece of plywood on the floor with a board sticking up. It only has to stick up maybe about 2 feet. You could use a 2x4, and this carpet tube will slide right over top of that and provide a nice steady base for you. So we use these all the time at VBS, and we threw in some more fun elements. We had some vines left over from previous VBS. I think it might have been from Amazon Expedition. And we've also incorporated some of the twisted paper vines, some more plants that people brought from their home. And we even have baby Moses in a basket here going along with, of course, over on this side of the hallway, Moses at the burning bush.
Yep.
Oh, awesome. So Mr. Matt is our children's pastor, but he's also our construction head. So you know how it is in churches, you wear a lot of hats, don't you? And he does just a fabulous job. Here's our space-themed hallway. So we designate one hallway, usually down by where the kids enter for the crafts and some of the master teaching time. And it's a black light-oriented hallway. And we've been doing that for quite some time. Here's a video on that.
So of course, all week long we're teaching about Jesus, and this is the part about him being in the future and what he's doing in the future, and the new heaven and the new earth. Now, we don't really know exactly what the new heaven and the new earth is going to look like, but we just kind of, for fun, we just kind of made it look sort of spacey for the new heavens, and the kids are going to have a lot of fun going through this, and stuff glows.
Absolutely, and these Time Lab shirts are really cool under the black light with all the great glowing ink that was used. And so how we get this hallway to glow with black light is we do replace our regular fluorescent lighting with some black light tubes that we've purchased over the years. We reuse these every year. We always make this a fun glow hallway. Now, an important thing to always do when you're making anything with blacklight is you need to experiment with different types of paper and different materials to actually see if it will glow. Some things you may get that you may think are fluorescent or you may think that will glow, you put them under a light and you can struggle to find stuff that'll glow. So always test different materials beforehand. And you'll see that as we go through this hallway, we've used a lot of inexpensive materials that glow. There are certain types of copy paper that glow really well. We've just taken some circles, different colors that look great under the light, some whites and some oranges and even some reds, cut out different shapes. We have circles, we have stars that work. We're just either attaching them to one way that we blacked out our walls, because our walls are tan here at our church. This is black roll tablecloth that we've attached at the ceiling and again at the floor to just black out our walls. And then these are strips of cardboard, and this is like a flagging tape or a caution type tape that you would use, you would get at the hardware store. It comes in a roll. It's really inexpensive, but it does glow. And so we've just stapled some of these strips of pink and strips of green onto some scrap pieces of cardboard, and it makes some fun glowing elements as you're going down your hallway.
Absolutely. And then you can have some great hanging stuff. Once again, we showed you this weed whacker stuff before, but here's some more of it that we again we just put it with the pegboard. We just took some foil and made almost kind of some little, you know, asteroidish looking things or whatever. So that's just some hanging stuff there. And then we've used, it's a little bit hard to see because it's dark in here, but this is snow fence, and it's orange. And it comes in rolls, and you can get this also at the hardware store. We use this a lot of places, so you could hang stuff and they just stuffed some things in it. And we also used it, you know how we had the awnings in the other hallway? Well, we kind of made them a little different kind of an awning
kind of space
there using that snow fencing. So we did actually use that quite a few places within the church.
Here's another inexpensive idea. We took shipping boxes, and these shipping boxes are just left brown, and we've attached some paper to them. We've zip tied 3 of them together, added some little dots. That's just a sheet of white paper and some orange dots glued onto the paper, attached to a shipping box, and it almost looks like sort of like a computer type model or something that's going on here. We actually have some foam blocks all throughout this hallway. Again, these came with different stuff that had been shipped, and we just put some tape on these boxes. This is regular Scotch tape, okay, and it glows. So try different types of tape, see if it glows underneath a black light, and then you can make fun patterns on any type of material that you have that you just we didn't spend any money on some of these decorations.
Absolutely. And once again, we've got another hanging area here. These slinkies are a little different than the other ones because they're all different multicolors, but they are so fun. The kids love these. These add a lot of dimension to the hallway.
One of the fun things you can buy is fluorescent paint, and so you can see we've made kind of a rock here, and we've used some fluorescent paint on that rock in order to make it glow a little bit, and so you have sort of like a moon rock or something like that as the kids are walking down the hallway. So that's a fun way to add some more color. Again, more just paper circles, scraps of
lots like we had at the other area. And you're going to probably realize when we're talking about all this, we've been saving a lot of boxes, plastic stuff, and bubble wrap that comes in also. You can paint that and put that all over the place. So start saving now if you're thinking about it. Just any packages you're getting at home or at church or at your offices or whatever, and because you can use them in all different ways, and it really makes it go far.
So one thing that Mr. Matt mentioned on there is taking black rolls of tablecloth. You know, it comes in the big rolls. And so our goal is to not put any marks in the hallways, right? Because we don't want our senior pastors getting upset. And so we take these furring strips, little thin pieces of wood that you can get from the hardware store, and we pre-attach to cut to the length of from floor to ceiling, pre-attach and staple to a wood furring strip that in turn has a couple holes drilled. Put some fishing line through, and you can take those S-hooks so that we can attach it into the ceiling grid. So I just think all that stuff is important because it's one thing to think, okay, well, I want to completely black out my hallway. Well, how do you really do that? You know what I mean? So it's good to have these little tips for that. All right, let's see what's next. Classrooms, awesome. So the classrooms, we have, I don't know, 8, 9, or 10 master teaching classrooms. So they're all treated exactly the same. So they are identical, they're vibrant and fun. Miss Deb is the one who executes those, and it just gives the master teachers such a wonderful backdrop to really make their points. So we've got a video on that as well.
So this is the classroom time, and we call it the simulation station. And what we do here is every day we're pretending that we're traveling through time to a different time period. And so there are posters back here. Every day it's a different one and it's a different time period. So we cover them up to just make it a little bit more exciting. And then at the right time, when we want them to pretend like we're going back into time, we take this off, and in a minute Matt will show you how we do the lights and stuff. But anyway, whoops. And then you see, whatever the scene is for that day. We'll be back behind here. And then if you want to explain how we do the lights right here.
Yeah, so what we did is we purchased online on Amazon what are called LED strip lights, or LED tape sometimes it's called. And this particular type, it's not very expensive. It's around $13 or $14. for this strip lighting. It actually comes with a remote control, and everybody loves to have a remote control.
He loves his toys.
yeah.
He's very excited about this. Okay.
You can change colors on this. It's got a whole variety of colors to choose from, and you can also choose different effects on there where it'll actually change color on its own, and it will fade from one color to the other, or just randomly do colors. If you don't want to do this LED tape, which is the different colors and color changing, you could use something like rope lighting. You could do Christmas lights. Here we've built our set out of cardboard. You could easily poke holes and stick Christmas lights through it.
Yep.
There's a lot of great decorations that this could either be done as a scene setter, so these are available on Scene Setter. We've painted our own on cardboard. Everything that you see here, you can get through your DVD-ROM. This is some swirl patterns. We have our time tracker. We have our gears that are available on the DVD-ROM. We have all kinds of fun gauges and clocks and even larger clocks. And you can make these in different sizes. We were able to print these on a large format printer. If you want something big like this, you can go to like Office Max or Staples or Kinko's, and they will print these in large ways for you, and we put them on colored cardboard circles, or you can print them smaller like this just on a regular printer.
Absolutely. And the time tracker, every day, you're going to move the arrow to whatever time you're going to be at, okay? So it just moves really well, and it's fun. And so that, just kind of moving yourself around the whole week, you're getting somewhere different. And it really is a really super easy, fun, colorful set. We've just got a little over here. We've just got a few little extra things we got over on the side. And then we always use our walls just to put all the posters up. So there's just an example of just the way that some people put some posters up for the first 2 days.
Awesome. So, stage design. So I realized that you're getting this kit of awesome things inside. All kinds of amazing ideas, all kinds of great helps. But there's also the reality that what we've provided might not exactly suit your particular church, because everybody's church is different. I call mine an extra large church. It has a very huge stage. Some of your churches might be extremely small. We've even included one idea for an outdoor venue called an extra small church. But anyways, I just think it's so fun having the opportunity to make something out of nothing, right? I mean, just because we're giving you all this great stuff, and it is great stuff, but you've still got to adapt that to your own situation. You've got to make something out of nothing. And I just encourage you guys to be prayerful, to really give it unto the Lord, to best approach your space, to best approach your whole concept and stage design. And, because God is the ultimate stage designer, right? He created this earth out of absolutely nothing, simply with his voice. I mean, and we get to be the beneficiaries of this awesome planet Earth, the ultimate stage design. So I just think, I personally have always loved making something out of nothing, but for some it's a little more of a challenge. So, but don't be shy. You'll have lots of help along the way. So there are some key principles that have guided my process of executing stage design, and number one is what we've talked about already, the 4-foot by 8-foot dimension. So I can't over-mention it enough what a great dimension this is, because it's the size of wood, it's the size of gator board, it's the size of coroplast, so it's the size of all kinds of things, and it's huge. So we can use things individually. We can gang up those 4x8s to form multiple pieces forming a larger whole, so it's just great. So the type of paint that I use is by the gallon. We use a Sherwin-Williams product, but you can certainly pick any brand that you like. And we use all bright colors, flatter eggshell of a latex paint. So what I find is that house paint is awesome, and it's readily available. And if you're a church that has a small budget, my very first seasons of doing VBS, we would just ask people to donate their leftover house paint, their interior paint, and I would take it to Sherwin-Williams, and I would say, hey, could you make it a little brighter, a bright blue instead of this pale baby blue? And, you know, they did what they could to help out a struggling young church, so I appreciated that, but latex paint is the way to go. A rule of thumb, now we don't have any buildings in our scene this year, but a rule of thumb about designing a building is your first floor is always a vertical 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of cardboard. So I am a huge proponent of drawing everything up to scale. Go buy yourself a grid pack of paper. One little teeny tiny square is 1/4 inch. Almost everything I draw is done 1/4 inch equaling a foot. Now every once in a while, if I'm doing a quick drawing for an inch away or something, I'll make it bigger, like a 1/2 inch equaling a foot. So a 1/2 inch would be 4 little squares together. So anyway, so here you go. Here's your 4-foot by 8-foot component. It's 8 squares high, 4 squares around. Now, if we were thinking about a building structure, boom, there's your first floor. Your first floor is 8 foot high. Do you want your building to be wider than 4 feet? Probably. How many sheets of cardboard wide do you want it to be? Do you want it to do a double wide, which would be 8 foot, or do you want to go a little farther and have a 12-foot wide building? So it's just kind of, it's a building block principle like that. I'm sure some of you are just so familiar with that. So then you can come in, you can add your decor, you can think about, is there a second story to my building? Maybe the second story is only 4 foot tall. Then you've got the opportunity to add your roof line. So anyway, so just think in regards to buildings, you know, a typical door height is 7 foot. So just think about your 4 foot, 8 foot component with your first floor always being 8 foot. All right, the next subject is animals. So we don't have any animals on the stage this year, but we certainly have in many years past. So the principle for animals is to always draw them bigger. So if you're doing pigeons, like for the Wild West year, we painted like 25 pigeons. So we're not doing a pigeon this big, we're painting a pigeon this big. And if you're doing a lion, you're gonna make him like at least 1/3 bigger than actual size. So that's just a principle to keep in mind, because when you're far, far away from things, you just want to be able to grab people's attention. And honestly, it takes just as long to paint a teeny weeny little lion as it does a great big lion. So we want to really maximize that. All right, there's the 50-foot rule and the 10-foot rule. So the 50-foot rule is this. It has to look good from 50 feet away. So I like that, don't you? That means from here to that black curtain back there, it needs to look awesome. And almost every single time it does. I mean, it's like a miracle. Oh my gosh, I was like 7 months pregnant with my 4th child. And at that time, our painting facility was the basement of our church, and it was really small, and it was really mildewy, and it was yucky. Anyways, and we painted this whole big thing, and it had all this type around it, and it was a hot mess. I'm telling you, it was a hot mess. And we put it up in our little tiny stage venue. We stepped back 50 feet. It was like a small miracle. It looked awesome. It looked awesome. All right, but then there's the 10-foot rule. Oh, the 10-foot rule is not as forgiving. So all of your entryways, all of your areas that people are walking right by, a greeting zone, oh man, those have got to look good. So that's the 50-foot rule and the 10-foot rule. All right, so think of your components. They're like puzzle pieces. So is anybody a sewer in here? A sewer? Yay, yay. So sewers, I have a sewing background too, and I'm telling you, a sewing background was really helpful to planogramming, laying out all these sometimes complex components. So it's just a bunch of puzzle pieces that fit together. So you think in layers, you think in things that fit together. Oh, next concept is layers. So there's a background, there's a foreground, there's your focal point, which tends to be in the middle. There's a stage left and a stage right. The next one is multiples. Oh my gosh, I am the biggest fan of multiples. I love multiples so much. So for instance, if it's a palm tree head year, well, you better believe there's going to be about 20 palm trees that are made, because they're awesome fillers. So for this year, we had less painterly things to do in multiples. One of the things that I came up with was these colored boxes. So that quickly became an easy thing to generate a multiple of. You could do it all different colors. You could put these amazing labels on top of it, and you have got instant excitement. So another multiple that was generated this year was multiple light boxes. Now these have been through, they've had some love, they're a little worn. I wish there was a light down in the middle of it, a light very similar to this one on that baby time machine that rotated around, but these were so great on stage. So these are filters, furnace filters. You can get them in squares, you can get them in rectangles. They are a cheap medium. Just duct tape them. You could use colorful duct tape. We used the gaff tape, which is more durable, and you put a light in the base. So on our stage, in regards to multiples, we had some singles with a light in it, some doubles, and we even had a triple. So we had about 6 sets of those, and oh my gosh, it looks so good. So I encourage you guys to think about that as one of your multiples. We also have been a big proponent ever since the ocean year of using pizza wheels to zip tie together. So as part of our background, I'm going to talk about that more later, we used pizza wheels, zip tied them together, painted them fun patterns. So that was an easy multiple to generate. You wouldn't have to do any that had patterns on them, and you could just use all bright colors. So fantastic multiple, quick to execute, simple and complex. All right, I don't know about you, but I like that word simple a lot better than the word complex. But we're going to have both. We need to think about both. So for instance, this is a simple approach to a problem. That's simple. A time machine, that's complicated, isn't it? So you got to pace yourself. You can't be designing everything that's so excruciatingly beautiful but so hard to execute. So we've got to have plenty of those fillers as part of our stage that are simple to do. Ceiling hung versus ground up. Every time I bring a drawing to Mr. Matt, who's our children's pastor, but also our construction head, he takes one quick look at it and he says, I like this. There's a lot of ground up this year. So ground up was all those elements that are, you take a brace from behind and it's on the ground. So obviously a ceiling hung thing, you're having to get on the ladders, you're having to dangle these things. And the ceiling hung stuff looks so good though. It looks so good. So for instance, this year we had a lot of these periodic table elements that were hanging from the ceiling. So you'll be able to print these out. We had 5 different ones from the periodic table. And there's just stuff that hangs. It just has a nice movement. The air ducts just make them move. There's all kinds of things that we hang. But there's a definite difference in regards to time and energy between your ground up items, which are quicker, and your ceiling hung items, which take a little more time. Oh, did I go too fast? Oh, I did. All right, so here we go. So talent levels. So here's the thing. I hope you have a big team of volunteers that says, oh, I cannot wait to help you, and maybe it's some repeat people. So you've got a little team, they know what to expect, you know what to expect, and even if it's only 1 or 2 people, those people are precious, but we still need to divvy up jobs according to talent levels. So you're just going to need to know, okay, I've got this one person and she graduated from the Columbus College of Art and Design. Well, I know what I'm giving her, right? She's going to get something difficult, something painterly, and then I've got somebody else, and they're just a lovely, kind soul that wants to help. Well, they're going to get another job that's perhaps a little simpler. So just be mindful of that. Small budget. So I don't know about you guys, but I've been all the gamut of small budget, elaborate budget, etc. And if you have a small budget, you can still produce something awesome. So just like what I was saying about the paint, you can take paint donations, you can go to Sherwin-Williams, you can have a little bit of dye added to make it a little more vibrant, you can ask for donations in other regards. We've done all kinds of things. So, don't be discouraged if you're a teeny weeny little church. Those churches are precious. divine inspiration. Man, I just encourage you guys to be prayerful. Barbara and Randy originated a prayer group just for Vacation Bible School. We met on a Thursday night, and now, like 17 years later, that group is still going. So anyways, I just encourage you to, with a friend or two or more, to really just cover this whole event in prayer. It is such a fantastic event, and we just want the little children to just pour through our doors. All right, so I'm including this little section. It's not going to take that long, and it might not really be that relevant to everybody, but I include it because everybody in my world thinks that stage design is literally like you snap your fingers and poof, there it is. And I'm not kidding. It's like people just think it's just this magic thing. It just materializes and was effortless. And how many people think it's really that effortless? No, it is a fantastic, hard-working process. And there are 8 steps along the way that I have found to be true every year. And the number 1 step's a pretty easy one. You need to generate a perimeter drawing to scale. So for instance, that's the background of our church. That's a blueprint. And then that's a top view, the smaller drawing down below. And that's my gridded pad of paper. So you must have a gridded pad of paper. It'd be awesome to have an architectural ruler too, so that you can see all the varying scales on that and use your 1/4 inch equals a foot. Everything must always be drawn to scale. So I've had to adapt. I've had to adapt between those 2 drawings. My perimeter drawing that I do every single year is the base for my sketches. So you got to have that. That's step number 1. It's fairly easy, and once you've done it, you have it forever. So that's a great thing. Number 2, okay, ignore the fact that drama person is set in the scenery, and because we're still starting with nothing, right? We're still working on making something out of nothing. So number 2, meet with your drama department or your Vacation Bible School head to determine your focal point and your drama needs. So every single year, I cannot just have this vision in my head of some artistic expression I want to do. No, we're problem solving. We're meeting a need. How many entry and exit doors are needed? How many floors are needed? For the Wild West year, we wanted 2 floors with a balcony so that the drama could be spread out. You've got to think about all these needs. Do I need to access here on the left? Do I need to go through a curtain on the right? So meet with your drama head before you start designing to know those exact needs. Number 3, we're still making something out of nothing, so we haven't really started sketching yet. We've got to research our theme. And maybe you can take some of these principles into helping out with your children's school plays or adapting to another medium such as that. But we've got to know our theme inside and out. We've got to print out some visuals. So you can go online, you can go to the library, you've got to collect these visual references that you create a wall so that when you finally sit down to sketch something, you've got something that's very inspiring around you and can trigger your ideas. Number 4, design the focal point of your stage. So we are moving beyond having nothing to having something very important. So the focal point of your stage is what I designed first each and every time. So we have our time machine this year, and I don't know about you, but when I first heard the word time machine, I had no idea what that was going to look like. And so I wanted to create a model. Now, I don't create a model of the focal point every year. In fact, I don't think I ever have, except for this year. But you better believe for next year, when you guys see next year's theme and you see what the focal point is, we'll have made a model. I'll just tell you that. That's just like a tiny little hint because it's, exciting. So I had to think in terms of scale. I knew that I'm still working with my 8-foot tall component. This is 8 feet from here to here. This was done in Bristol board, 3/4 inch equaling a foot. And I knew that I wanted a base. So I had to think in terms of keeping it simpler for the construction guys. So our drama team is flat on the back. It's based on a decagon. So I think that's 10 sides. Yeah, 10 sides. It's flat on the back, so the drama entered and enter from behind. And so just real quickly, I was able to envision how to come up with some construction drawings down the road, but really what I did this for was so that I could know how to draw it. You know what I mean? I had to know what I wanted, what was doable to execute, and then I needed to know how to draw it. So that led to the next step of really starting to pull some things together. So I did a rough drawing of that time machine. It went onto my perimeter sketch, dead center in the middle, and I had all my visual references that I'm just pulling from. Now, as you can see, this is a very hand-done process for me, and I fully realize that there's so many people out there that are doing fantastic things on the computer, and I applaud you for that. But I also want to remind you that it is literally the exact same principle if you're on your computer or if you're doing things by hand. You're still drawing to scale an individual item that can be pulled around and moved around. So this is a very early rough concept, and things are individually drawn to pull around and move around. So as you can see, I'm starting to think about, a spacey thing behind. I'm starting to think about up in the top right, those graphic, I call it graphic mountains, but something that's easy to implement. It takes up a ton of space, but it's easy to implement. It's just pattern and color. So just starting to think through some processes. Develop the rough stage under drawing. So at this point in time, things are really coming together, but it's still rough. You're still individually drawing something. So for instance, on the far left, on the floor bottom, is kind of an electric looking thing that's red and white, and that's individually drawn, and it's perfectly to scale. Don't be tricked by the fact that things look like a sloppy mess. They're drawn exactly to scale so that you're living in the land of reality, and that's 8 foot tall. So I've done all that legwork, and I'm ready to generate my final black and white drawing. And I love black and white drawings because you can come in, you can change up the color. If you're doing this on your computer, you can very easily change up the color. Kids love to color these as well. But I've got all my thinking solidified to the point that I've got this wonderful, fantastic black and white drawing ready to add some color to, and there you have it. So I'm thinking through everything. I know I've got a black background. What's going to separate nicely from that? I know I've got this color palette. How can I distribute that color well? So all of these things to keep in mind. And that's just it a little bigger, and we're going to compare that to the final stage, and I'm going to go back and forth so that you can see that. So here's our final stage, and it's very, very similar. So we've got our space arch on the far right. We used blue door hanging down, crinkly stuff for the actors to go in and out. We've got the large graphic clock mounted directly behind the time machine. We've got the scientist desk off to the left, and also a scientist desk off to the right that has that orange rim right there. And here's what I love. This is the construction guy's favorite part about this whole scene this year, where those gray boxes, can you see them off to the right? So that's those boxes down there on our stage edge. And so they got to erect a wall simply by putting a box on top of each other. So that was like the highlight of their construction week. So anyways, we're going to scroll back just so you can check this out again. Whoop. So there it is large. So for instance, even like that ductwork on the far left top. So that's a ceiling hung item. So I had drawn that to scale. I knew that, for instance, that yellow duct, you guys can see that, the yellow one up on the tippy top. I knew that that was going to fit onto a 4 foot by 4 foot sheet of cardboard. So everything is done so that when it's time to implement your work, you can do it like that because you've put so much thought into it, and things are done exactly to scale. And then the final, oh, it's a little dark over there on that pipe zone. All right, the whole stage. So we've got to start with a background, don't we? And even if it's a simple background, we still have to have some kind of a background. So this year, we used pipe and drape as our background with the black hanging down. But a few years ago, we came up with this pulley system of a bar that could pulley all the way to the floor. And I'll tell you, this is like awesome. So now we pre-attach stuff from the ground up, pulley it up, and then you have this awesome start to your background. So that has been a huge time help. And we use those pizza wheels that I was talking about, which was a very simple item to execute, and yet it looks so dynamic and awesome. And then, of course, there's the focal point. So the focal point is probably going to be your most complicated design component. You're going to have to put some thought into it. You guys have been given real quick blueprints in your handout of a low and wide time machine, and also of a tall, medium-sized time machine. This is a time machine for the extra large, so you're going to have to find that. It's available. It's available. So we'll get you the information on that. But it's not for the faint of heart. So, you know, you'd have to have a construction dude that was just so excited about that one that really took it on as their project. All right, so the whole stage, flanking your focal points. We've got items on the left. Some of these we've talked about. We've got our ductwork hanging down. We've got streamers that are part of real ducts. If you can see, oh, my image is so much brighter. I apologize for that. But it's the shiny silver things. Those are real ducts that we got from the hardware store, and then we used the door streamers to hang down from that, and it just created a lot of movement and bringing in these striped boxes. So these are from our Kids City zone. We did these years and years ago, but it was very fitting to use for the VBS this year. So for our scientist table, we pulled out more of those stripes. We just played up on that because it really fit into the theme this year. And we've got the chalkboard that you can barely see. We've got a desk there. So that was a real TV mounted behind that purple monitor area. It's not on, but it did all kinds of fun graphics. And then if you look in the left picture, that top square is a vertical TV mounted behind that dark blue column. A very similar concept to this. So it was mounted behind, and it just had graphics that were rolling and really a lot of fun. And here we go to the right. So we're reinforcing our theme more. We've got our all kinds of clocks and just all kinds of elements everywhere. We've got our dryer tubes hanging up there. And in the foreground, we've got some of the test tube components and just little things along the edge. I find that our leaders have papers and shuffly things and giveaways, and they like a little something on the foreground to hide that stuff behind. All right, I'm really excited about this next part. Okay, whew, how are we doing? Let's see. We've been an hour and 10 minutes in. Are we still holding strong? Good. Good, I'm glad. This is good stuff. So, for the first time ever, we've got some drawings adapting an extra large concept, which is my church, all the way down to an extra small concept. So, the extra large is all the bells and whistles. So, that is kind of like picking out your favorite cookie from a cookie jar. I don't have an extra large church, but I love this component here. Oh, I love this visual component here. So you can pick and choose what you would like to adapt to your church. But the large size stage is a very interesting approach. It was done by Linworth. So our pilot church took our sketch and adapted it to their large size church, and they just did such an amazing, amazing job. I was just so tickled. It was just such a great job. So it's a little bit of a simpler approach, but still a beautiful approach. They used a 6-foot tall white wall that just went all the way across. And then they decorated that. They brought in a slime machine and some oversized components to fill the ceiling area. They had this really awesome black curtain with lights built into it that were part of that middle area, and then took the pizza wheels and hung them down. So it was fantastic. We've got our medium-sized stage, which is fewer components, but still a very large space. A lot you can do with that. A small-sized stage, perhaps your church meets in a cafeteria or a middle school, been there and done that. So you can't really hang things from the ceiling, but you can do all kinds of fun stuff from the ground up. And then an extra small size stage. Maybe you're just so excited you want to take some components and get your teenagers in your neighborhood and build a time machine and throw something together for the neighbor kids outside, including your neighbors in the process. So here we go, the extra large stage. We're getting familiar with that. The large stage, and we can see it more up close. So they had little chunks along that white wall. It was broken up by this awesome white time machine. Oh my gosh, the thing was so cute. So you've got the blueprints for that. It's in the last page of your handout. It is the low and wide time machine. So I love that time machine. And I probably wouldn't have painted it white, but it looks so good. So it really read well. The medium stage is still using tons of those components. This is a nice close-up look at that. Once again, really using those painted boxes as wall barriers and space fillers. And it looks great, but, it couldn't get much easier in regards to implementation. This is using a taller, medium time machine that is also in your handout. These two time machines, the low and wide and the tall and medium, I consider very doable. So we've got gears, we've got ceiling hung items in this space. The small stage, as we talked about, not hanging from a ceiling, a 40-foot wide, a 12-foot high, and again, that outdoor stage. So this photo, it's a comparison of the two. So, the pilot church took the design, just like you guys are doing. You're taking this help, you're taking these designs, but you've still got to modify it. You've got to adapt it to your own space. And so, these are two very different approaches, but they're both wonderful approaches, and they still feel and represent the Time Lab theme. All right, so you have in your handout, you've got the low and wide time machine, which is the white one that was shown in that sketch. And you've got the medium and tall time machine drawings as well. Now, if you want to use the ones from the extra large size church, which is an extra large size of work, but still, there might be a construction guy in your church that just is so enthused about that. So those are available to you as well. All right, painting implementation, just like we have stage design principles, we have painting implementation principles. And the key point here is to remember that your people, your volunteers are precious, that we are to be respectful of their time and respectful of them as people and coming alongside us and our vision. So our people are our greatest asset. Our paint type, we talked about that already, latex house paint. Be organized with a VBS notebook. So once I get through all the craziness of the research and the meeting with the drama head and generating my perimeter stage sketch, and I finally start figuring out some things that I'm going to do, I start making a notebook of construction drawings, of just paint, everything. Base color paint decided for the 4-foot by 8-foot sheet. So what that means is before you can know how much paint to purchase, we've got to know how many sheets of 4-foot by 8-foot things we're going to roll out. So for instance, you've got your notebook and you've got a little white paint chip on your notebook on a page. You've got a purple paint chip on a page. You've got an orange paint chip on a page. And as you go through your sketch and as you deeply evaluate how you're going to implement every single item, you are going to, for instance, under the white category, I know that I'm going to paint 6 clocks. I'm going to cut them out of cardboard that's already been painted white, and so I'm going to relegate 3 sheets of 4-foot by 8-foot cardboard for those white clocks that have a white base. So how much paint? 6 sheets of 4 foot by 8 foot can be painted out of 1 gallon of paint. Now, sometimes it stretches a little further. This is in regards to doing your base coat painting. So you've got all your cardboard laid out, and you're going to roll it all the way to the edge, and you can get 6 sheets of cardboard out of 1 gallon of paint. Now, when it comes time to doing the detail-oriented paint, such as a component that already has the base color done, that paint stretches much further. So you're going to need to planogram some items in your notebook. So one of your categories is going to be planograms. So for instance, if you got 20 grass tufts, you know that quickly on a 4 foot by 8 foot, you're going to generate 20 grass tufts. Or for a building, and you're going to have 5 sheets, it's a really low, wide building. You're going to have that sketched out a little bit and planogrammed out so you can think about where to put those windows, where to drop in those doors. All right, here's a rule of thumb. Oh my gosh, so important. No stepping on cardboard, no knees, no elbows, ever. Because once you get those indentations from a knee, now you can step on it in tennis shoes, but you can't step on it barefoot. So once you get those indentations in the cardboard, it is game over. So they are permanent, and they surpass the 50-foot rule. Though you'd have to give those like the 1,000-foot rule to not see them. So anyway, so just be mindful, and that's the first thing I do. I've got a few things that I rattle off with my new volunteers, and that's one of them. Flattening your cardboard, really important. So I don't know if you have leftover tables that you can use. You put cardboard tummy side down, painted side down. It curls crazily. Who has noticed the whole curling cardboard effect? Oh my gosh, that medium has a mind of its own. So you must flatten your cardboard. We've got a few pictures to show of that in a little bit. You got to generate a line drawing for each and every item to be painted. So where's my little container? Oh, here we go. So we're generating a line drawing for every single thing to be painted, and we're putting it in a notebook. Now, there's some baby stuff, easy stuff, maybe you don't need to do that for, but for a lot of your things, you're going to need to. So this is the slime machine notebook, and this is what I gave to Lauren for her to implement that work. So I had done my research. I had generated this transparency. Can you guys see that? Does that read? And that was, but first I had drawn up the time machine, and that was based on something that I found online that I thought was really quirky and fun. And so I just directly traced that, but added my own fun things. So I added all the dials, I added the hoses, I added a different base, but that was where I started, so that's the thinking you guys can do. And then, of course, I generated my transparency. So my buddy Lauren got this whole fantastic kit of stuff so that she could execute her project well. So I had another time machine that I was really excited about. I thought maybe she would like the rusticness of that copper on there. So anyway, she was given this whole kit of stuff, and I'm telling you, when you're organized and when you're individual about your items, it keeps you so organized and able to really keep things going quickly, and people feel like they're being given valuable information. All right, organize your paint space into zones. So there's a cutting zone where people are cutting out the cardboard. There's a washout zone. There's a painting zone. There's a supply zone, etc. Encourage your painters. This is so important. Show them that you appreciate them. Use your words, and just be really respectful and thankful. Know that your painting zone will be a wild, unruly mess. I try so hard for things to be nice and tidy and all my ducks to be in a row, and that lasts for like 4 seconds. So don't be hard on yourself. Our pastor hasn't come down to say hi to me in 30 years, okay, because it's a wild mess. You're going to have a fluid and unpredictable stream of volunteers. So it would be nice in an ideal world that you knew that Susie was going to be here on Monday and Joe was going to be here on Wednesday and Thursday. And I'm telling you, most of the time, you don't know who's going to show up. So you have to be prepared. You've got to have your easy jobs. You've got to have your complicated jobs ready. You've got to know how to quickly direct the flow of people that show up during the volunteer time. And that plays right into having easy and hard jobs prepared. And don't fret about varying paint styles. So, for instance, I would call this a paint by number item, this big gear. But we came back, added a little bit of a dry brush, instantly, voila, it's awesome. Of course, this thing was awesome because it was a little more realistically painted. But sometimes you've got things that are just pure pieces of clip art type graphic, simple design, such as this incompleted piece. So the Lord is so good, He's so kind, and He just takes all the different styles, of which there is a jumble variety of different styles, and He pulls them together, and it just looks great. So don't fret about the varying styles. Overhead projecting, so I'm sure that you guys are all familiar with that. Using an overhead projector, you've got to have a transparency, so just what I was showing you in that slime machine folder, that you start with a piece of art, you draw it, you turn it into transparency, and then you use your machine to project. And I use that for almost everything. It's an invaluable tool. My painters are always given pre-drawn items. So if a painter shows up, I don't give them the transparency and the hunk of white cardboard and say, go draw up this graphic element. I have given them something that is already drawn up. So if you're the art director of your stage group, it's probably going to be you that does that. Now, if you're lucky, there's maybe one other person, maybe two other people that could help you do that. But what I have found is that when people show up, they just want to paint, and a lot of times they just don't have the hand skills even to keep lines not shaky. So it's probably going to be you or one or two other support people. For the snowflake year, for the Arctic expedition last year, I knew there was no way that I could draw all those snowflakes. So there was a young sewer in our church, and I know she was very familiar with patterning and sewing. And I asked her if she would be my snowflake girl. And that's all she did for 2 weeks, was draw snowflakes. And then she graciously painted them too, which was really awesome. All right, here we go. What have we got next? Poor work happens. What do you do? Oh, this is a nail biter. Oh my gosh. So you just have to proceed with caution. I mean, sometimes the next morning I'll correct a few super wobbly lines, but I try not to do that. So I just ask you guys to use your own discretion on that, because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. That's not our goal here. Our goal is unity, being on the same team, being appreciative. But every once in a while, you're going to have to do something. Save complicated and multiple projects for last. So this is what I always do each and every year, because there are just some things that are mind-boggling to do. So for instance, for Camp Kilimanjaro, and we had to paint that mountain scene behind it, it's like, oh, I just didn't want to do that. We saved it until the very last. And I tell you, the Lord is so good. He does cool things. And this guest artist happened to be in town, was a friend of a friend of a friend, and he came in and he says, I would love to paint your Camp Kilimanjaro mountain. So I always save the complicated, difficult things for last, and I find that they go much quicker because I'm out of time and I'm into my project and able to tackle them more efficiently. Pray, pray, pray. So I know you guys will do that. The Lord is the inspiration for all things good. I'm going to just scroll through some painting images. I think you'll really enjoy these. I won't talk much through them. This is what I call my executive desk. Every year, Matt, did you set up my executive desk? It's very important. So this is an example of flattening the cardboard. You know, I have the luxury of using these round tables, but I haven't always had that. Sometimes we've had to use cinder blocks to flatten the cardboard. And if you use something like a cinder block, make sure you do a couple layers of some scrap cardboard under your cinder block so that you don't put too many indentations in your art. So this is an example of the base paint rolling out. This is always done on nights 1, 2, and 3. We'll have some straggler base painting to do as time goes on, but we try to knock out the majority of it in the very beginning of our paint process. So those sheets in front are all panels from the time machine. We haven't put the black and white pattern onto the white area yet. The area in the farthest, where it's the dark blue, those are all multiple components for the classrooms. That's our Kid City stage in the very background. So Children's Church is held back there. And this is the gym where you guys are seeing this process go on. So we got a start of that rocket that was used in the entryway. We used one of those red rockets up on the stage too. So we work tabletop. So, you know, in the old days, I had to get down on the floor, but I'm telling you, tabletop's the way to go. We do overhead Bible verses, so that's what those words are that Steve is working on. This is another view of the executive desk area. It's quite beautiful, isn't it? And that's a close-up of our time machine. So the time machine is on its side. We were using it for storage. So as Barbara and Matt in the Space Hallways video were talking about leftover packaging materials and styrofoam, so people were donating that and we were just stuffing it into the middle of that frame for our time machine. Involve your young people. I must say that we have a rule now that you have to be 14 to help paint because we've had too many disasters of paint on the bottom of people's feet and tracing throughout the church. So anyways, but you know, involve your young people. Try to raise up this next painting generation. Oh, my darling counterpart, Deb, she wrote me this sweet, precious note. I tell you, encouraging your people is so important. And when you get that back, it is precious. And this is a picture of Deb and I. Who was here last year for the decorating segment? And Deb was here. Well, she's a little darling. And you know, these are our teammates. We are to encourage one another. So sometimes most of the time we use foam cups of paint that we pre-pour. In this instance, Joe was working on that huge space arch using bunches of colors. And sometimes it's just nice to have a nice big area, a nice palette. Oh, another young person. Oh, try to involve your young people. I can't say that enough. And Julie's doing an awesome job on these graphic mountains. I call them graphic mountains, but patterns. Use patterns. Patterns are awesome. They're easy to implement. An example of projecting. There's the projector. So this is an example of multiple pieces forming a giant whole. This is the huge clock that is behind the extra large time machine, and as you can see, it's a bunch of pieces. So that art was all drawn, and then, so for instance, we had a whole bunch of chunks to it, but it was each on a transparency and then projected. I mean, it was quite a feat to project that, but it was still easier than doing it each piece by hand. Not everybody has the same skill levels, and not everybody who shows up is going to be able to do even paint by number type stuff. So Frank shows up and he says, just give me anything, as long as it's not too hard. So this past year, he painted all these pipes for us, which took a ton of time and was amazing. He painted all the boxes for us, which took a ton of time, but was amazing. So anyways, that's very helpful. So knowing the skill levels of your people. So on the left, just like I said, for every single component that is to be implemented that has any complexity to it whatsoever, there is a folder for it. On the right, again, we talked about the slime machine. So that's Lauren implementing the slime machine. That's it on the left, all complete. We've got a small one over here that you can take a peek at, quality level. And so she was given those things to inspire her. So for instance, that beaker wound up getting painted, but at the time, we didn't know if we were going to have time to paint it. But she liked the way that looked in there, and she adapted that into the slime machine. And Jo had all kinds of great references as she started her space arch, which was used behind the clock where the 10 and the 11 are. So again, that projector is your best friend. Time for construction, praise the Lord, and we're almost done. That's kind of a praise the Lord too, huh? So here we go. We use a lift for our productions. And, you know, we've been all over the place in regards to equipment. You know, once upon a time, we had a 6-foot ladder, and that was the tallest we went. But, you know, things are taller now, and things are bigger. That is a look at the start of the time machine. We've got all of our graphic components down into the church ready to go. And you see those wood pieces right there on the side? So we call that a flat. So those are 4-foot by 8-foot components that can be pieced and drilled together, and then you mount your cardboard to the front of those. So this is one thing I do every year. I use pattern, and I put just kind of some quick pattern underneath both of our screens. It's kind of high up there, and that way you've got that space covered in a fun, festive, colorful way, and then you can layer in front of that. And there's those dryer vents being hung. So the dryer vents, they have a rib cage. So you can just quickly put a zip tie into that rib cage, and then they hang really simply from that. And that lift has really been valuable. That's a look at from behind. And that's our pastor and children's pastor and construction worker's son. All right, here's a video by Matt.
Hey everyone, welcome to our Time Lab VBS set. The first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is our awesome time machine that we put together for, of course, the centerpiece of our drama and just the centerpiece of our set for VBS this year. It's so fun. It's a big part of the drama. We've had a lot of fun with it, using some special effects as we go, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the construction of it, as well as some of the fun special effects that we do. We basically built this in 3 parts. We have a base. The base is about 2 feet high. It's got a plywood top and bottom. And then we've just covered the face of it with Luan, which is 1/4-inch plywood. We've gone with a unique shape. We've actually made this in a shape of a decagon. It's half of a decagon, the front half of it. So it's a 1, 2, 3, or 6-sided. Maybe it's not a decagon. I don't know. But anyway, it's 6 panels going around. We used a aluminum ramp right here that is something that we use for moving equipment in and out of a trailer or up and down a set of stairs. So we had this and we used it. We just bought some fun caution tape that is sticky-sided tape that we just put down the side to add a little bit of an effect. But this base here is very strong. It's structurally strong. It's framed with 2x4s and 3/4 plywood on the top and the bottom, because it's got to hold the weight of all the actors and everyone that are going to be going in and out of the time machine. So that's our first level. Our second level, which starts at the ramp and it goes up 8 feet, is basically an 8-foot framed wall. We added a couple door panels.
Those panels
we
are
made these
2
doors
feet by
ourselves.
8.
They are Luan doors. And we've actually just on the inside put some cardboard on it to kind of hide them. Our handles were just made out of pieces of half-inch or 3/4 inch, I think it's half-inch piping that make some really cool industrial-looking handles. Again, we're using this tape to hide some of the wood, but this is structurally strong as well. It's 2x4 framing, 3/4 inch plywood at the bottom, 3/4 inch plywood at the top, and it's just framed walls, Luan on all 4 sides again. So welcome backstage. We are right behind the very large wall that is the colorful backdrop to our entire VBS set. And so over the years, if you've ever watched some of our previous videos on other sets, you'll see that we build our sets pretty much the same way every year. We have collected over the years and created over a lot of the years 4x8 wall flats. And so what those are is a piece of Luan 1/4 inch plywood, and it has a frame around it made out of 2x3 wood lumber. And so when you have a whole stack of those, you're able to build large walls very fast. And then, so here we have, for example, here's one 4x8 flat, it's 3 high, and then at the top we've added a 2 foot by 8 foot flat. And so, you know, you do the math real quick, that's a 14-foot wall, 8 feet wide, that we were able to build in just a couple of minutes by screwing them together and attaching some long lumber to the back side. So what we do as a construction team, we'll attach all these pieces together, we'll put them in place and secure them to the ground, and then we come back with the cardboard that has been painted, and we attach the cardboard to the face of that wall. It goes by very quickly, so you're able to make a huge impact very fast. These flats, over the years we've decided we're going to paint them black. That was a great thing because sometimes there's a little seam that you miss or a corner that doesn't quite get covered up, and black helps it to disappear and you won't see it so much on the stage. Not all of our flats are that way, but I wish that they were. And now we have a very sturdy wall that we can attach the face to, but also add some fun elements on top. We've added planets on the top, we added a rocket to the top, but this wall is solid and it is sturdy, and you can quickly put together that big impact like I was talking about. So this is how we build all of our walls. We've got a collection of flats that are 4x8, 4 foot by 4 foot, 2 foot by 8 foot, 1 foot by 8 foot, and it's basically like a big puzzle you put together, and we use it every year. So it's a little bit of an investment up front, but trust me, you'll use them for years and you'll be glad that you have them.
Well, I don't know if we have time for a painting demo. We're 10 minutes past our time. Well, maybe 15 minutes. Maybe I could scroll through some of these decorating items, and then you guys can decide if you want to stick around. Does that sound good? So we had startup meetings. You know how when you have your VBS information counters perhaps at your church before VBS even happens. So we generated a whole bunch of these fun little glassware items, and these items, so originally they were for that. They were just to be something fun to put onto the countertops. We got all these from the thrift store. These labels were generated very easily, and then in turn we translated and used them on the science desks that were on the stage. But this is my ultimate favorite right here. So these rockets, their base is a Kleenex tissue round item. Now you could do your own thing. You could cut cardboard tubes. You could buy PVC tubes and have them cut. But this is a tissue box. And then we just use wrapping paper to wrap. We use party hats for the top, and you kind of take off about 1 inch of your party hat so it's not quite so long, and those ribbons were already pre-done from Party City. So anyway, so that was just a really fun way. These are snow stakes that you put in the ground there at the hardware store. They're like $1 a piece. And let's see, what else? Zip ties, be friends with zip ties and pizza wheels. It's just such a quick medium. Those labels on the boxes you've got on your DVD-ROM, and so that's something that's great to print out and adorn that and give it some Am I missing anything? I'm not sure. Maybe. But anyways, so, you guys want to stick around for a little painting demonstration, or?
Where did you get the paper that you made your model with
Oh, you mean for the real time machine?
for the model?
For the model? Those are zip ties.
No, the paper.
It's called Bristol board, and you can get that at a teaching supply store. It's on a pad of paper, just like graph paper or a normal paper, and it comes in 8.5 by 11. You can get it bigger, but it's called Bristol board. You can get it from an art supply store too. Yes.
The rockets. I know about the rods, but how did you make the topper to the rockets?
Oh, are you talking about that? So those are party hats that you get from Party City, and they were a little long, so I trimmed off about 3/4 of an inch, and then I just hot glued it to the top. Yeah, these things are, so it's just wrapped. It's wrapping paper wrapped around your tissue box. That was hot glued. This stake comes out, so you can see it's pointy, so it's a snow stake, We use a lot of these in Ohio. And I just jabbed a hole in the bottom there. Oh, also, if you guys liked that shiny paper on the extra large time machine, that came online from United Art and Education, and it comes in poster board size sheets, and it was like, I don't know, $2.80 a sheet. But it added a lot of pizzazz, and we just quickly spray mounted it to our wood. We had more structural integrity other than cardboard for the time machine because it had to support weight. So we used wood, and we spray mounted it to our wood, but then we reinforced it with screws. Yeah?
First up, appreciate your testimony. And,
Thank you.
Got two questions. Where do you get the 4x8 sheets of cardboard?
The question is, where do you get 4-foot by 8-foot sheets of cardboard? That's a great question. So any corrugated supply store, just give them a call. Like, look online, see what comes up in your local area. Give them a call and say, hey, do you sell the 4-foot by 8-foot sheets? Additionally, we get 6-foot by 8-foot sheets. So if you look over here at that really battered black and white piece over there, that's an example of a 6-foot by 8-foot sheet. So just sometimes you just want something that's a little bigger. It's especially helpful for animals. So on an animal heavy year, you can get a rhino out of that without having to piece a couple 4x8s together. So we do 4x8 and then much fewer 6x8s. Any other questions?
What's the best thing for cutting the cardboard?
Well, I always use a mat knife. I wish I had one up here. Anyways, from the hardware stores or Sherwin-Williams, there's fancy mat knives that are metal, like maybe your dad or grandpa has one and you have to replace the blades. And those work great. And a lot of my cutters, we have a cutting zone. We have a whole cutting zone because there's always so much stuff to cut out. And I call them the master cutters. But anyways, I like the cheap ones, the ones that you can snap the blade off. And they're like dirt cheap. They're like 99 cents a piece, and they come in all bright colors. So those are my favorite. I think they cut the best, and I like being able to snap the blade off quickly. And they're still the same scale, so they're still about that big and come in all different colors. Yes?
For the base coat, when you paint the sheets of cardboard,
Yeah.
do you paint both sides to keep it from rolling? Or?
If you had the time and left over white paint, it doesn't even matter what color paint, you will have and you paint both sides, you will have a completely flat piece of cardboard, which is like a dream come true. And every year I say to myself, oh, I'm going to pre-do the one side and be so organized, and it never happens. So, I mean, if you have that capability to paint both sides, that would be great. But otherwise, we got to be good flatteners.
And once you flatten that, will it stay flat?
Yeah, it stays pretty flat. It stays pretty flat. It's not perfect, but when we have a piece of art that's done, it goes to the praise of the Lord done pile, tummy side down, and it gets flattened some more until it's construction time. Yes?
What is the best way to attach
well, we use screws. So yeah, and so the guys, they screw it in, and then when construction time, when we got to tear down, they screw it out. You know what I mean? And it works great. And it's the kind magnetically, the screw's kind of magnetically attached to, yeah. I'm not a construction girl, but I've watched it many years. Anybody else? Well, I'm so glad everybody came, and I just wish you the best of luck with your stage design and every aspect of your VBS. I know it's going to be fabulous, just fabulous.
All right, Christian is here. Christian's from our customer service manager. So if you would like to place your order today for your VBS products, you can fill out your order form, and then Christian can help process that if you have questions about anything. Christian is back here to answer that. If you want to stick around, Chris can do a painting demonstration for you. And then we have, if you guys are going to do the volcano thing for your teaching time, if you think you're going to do that, if you want to grab however many teaching stations that you have, like we usually probably would just have one or two. So, but if you just want to grab one of these, you guys can take these back to your teachers, pick those up and grab those. And then we also have I'll get a giveaway for this one. This is a lab coat. So the lab coats are really fun for your teachers. If you want your teachers to dress up in the lab coats, and we will see who gets this one. Holly Hitchin. All right. And then let's see what else we have back down here. Oh, this was the other one. On what? Oh yeah, the coupon. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mentioned that to them. And then these, we're just going to give away. I guess there's probably enough. If you just want to grab one for your group, one or two for your groups, don't eat the candy because it's been sitting in there for a long time. But they're just kind of a fun decoration for you to put out, and it just gives you an idea, like dollar store kind of thing. So if you just want to grab one for your group, don't eat the candy because it's been in there for a while, okay? And I don't want anyone coming back and saying I got sick at the thing. So I'll put these up here. You guys can grab those. And then we'll give away the rest of these water bottles too. I think we have enough for one for the rest of the people. Michael McDonough, James Powell, and Katie Widener. So if you guys want to come up and grab one of those, you can do those. And thank you guys for coming. We're thankful that you made the trip out here. If you have any other questions, I'm here for a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In addition to the bookstore coupon, up at guest services, there are $15 coupons.
Right. If you want to if you would like to tour the museum either today or tomorrow, up at guest services, if you've pre-registered, there are vouchers for $15 for the museum. The museum is usually, what, $30? I don't know, but they're $15 coupons for, no, it's just good for today or tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So those are up at the guest services desk if you've pre-registered, okay? Mm-hmm. If you want to go ahead and start a demo,
Okay,
Chris,
that sounds
that's
good.
fine. If you guys want to watch Chris do some painting, you're welcome to. If you want to fill out your stuff, take more
Yeah.
pictures, you're welcome to do that too. So whatever you need to do.
So I brought my paint today. In general, we work with the cups of paint. Don't feel like you have to look, or I know you're busy, but I'm just going to prattle on. So if you pay attention, that's fine. If not, that's okay too. So this tote is awesome. It holds 8 cups of paint. So for more complicated projects, you can keep all your paints that you're working on a particular project in a box. But if you've got a tote, that works great too. So our first item is a graphic item using the same pattern that we used in our time machine. And I love the simple graphic components from this year. And it's so easy. Well, first of all, I'm using this most fabulous color called Dynamic Blue. And this Dynamic Blue is like a dream come true. So it's so easy. You just go along. You define your edge initially. and then you come back in and fill. So you're going to really want to glob on the paint when you define your edge. That's very important. Now, see, that's why I don't work vertically. So remember, you're working horizontally, you're not working vertically. You're defining your edge initially. You're coming back and filling in. And what I tell people is to really pack on the paint. Like a lot of people, they're really tentative and they don't want to form those big globby, I had a boo-boo there, as you can tell. This is what happens when you work vertically. Remember to work horizontally. They don't want to glob on the paint because they don't want that, that little ridgy look. That doesn't matter. From a distance, it looks fabulous. So you want to glob on the paint so that you don't have to do 2 coats. 2 coats is like, Sometimes you have to do 2 coats because orange, has anybody found that orange is impossible? Orange and yellow are tough. So you got to really glob on the paint, and you're going to be glad of that later. So let's pretend like that is all looking awesome, except for my big boo-boo. So I'm going to grab my black cup of paint, and I want to show you guys. So in these foam cups, I have each individual color. So my black paint, this is really a neat technique. This could be the reason why you're glad you came today. All right, so we could go and we could start defining our edges in regards to our black. Oh wow, this paintbrush is it's really been through a war. So same principle, you define your edge, but when you come to something sharp and pointy, a corner, what I do is I dip my paintbrush into the paint, and then I've got a little bit of black paint on there, and I'm going to come in, I'm just going to dab it onto that corner area, and see how I've got a start of some paint, and I'm going to dip it again, and just kind of massage that area. And voila, I have my point. Now, I could go a little crazy and I could make it a little pointier, but I know that from afar that is going to work just fine. I'm going to bring my defined edge to meet up with that corner. I'm going to pull it down. And I just worked through the most difficult part of this assignment. So that is that piece of art. I'm just going to finish up with that for now, and we're going to take a look at doing slime on the slime machine. So we've got this piece that's partially done. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. Can you guys see it? Sort of see it? So we're going to take a peek at how to do some slime. And so this will be an opportunity to, to be a little artsier. It's not a paint by number. It's something that does require a little more thinking. And the first thing I'm going to do is, first of all, you could work with 3 different colors of paint. You could work with a bright, a dark, and a light. But instead today, I'm just going to choose to work with the very lightest and the very darkest and mush them together. So I'm going to start with the bright color first. This is electric lime. And so this is another thing I do. So on the foil, we always we dab a little piece of the paint on top of the foil. That way later we can know which cup of paint to grab. So I'm using a pretty wide brush. You can use a smaller brush. It doesn't need to be so thin and wide. But I'm going to come in towards the middle. I'm going to define my edge up top. And I'm going to drag it down. Now, if we were working horizontally and I was on a table, I would be globbing the paint on. I mean, it would be like pretty thick. Now, we don't have the luxury of doing that standing because we'd have a mess. So you're just getting your nice lime paint on. Go ahead and define those edges that need to be defined. For instance, down here as we interact with this base. I forgot to put a color on your paint sheet, and that is this mustard color. It's called Relic Bronze, if you're interested. We gave you all the bright colors, but I forgot to include that one. All right, so I'm just kind of re-wetting this. Don't forget, if I was working horizontally, the paint would have been thicker and wetter. All right, so now we can come back with our darker green. And so this is a good example of what we're striving for. So this is kind of what we're going for. I'm going to come back with my darker green, and again, I'm using a wide, flat brush. We're going to define our edge. We're going to pull. And you know, another thing is it would be great if everything was all perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect, because that's what the black line is all about. Coming back with our black line at the very end of our project is kind of a pain. A lot of fussy, fancier artists don't like doing that to their art, but boy, the black line sure does unify everything, and it makes things look great from afar. It helps things to separate. So as you can see already, we're getting some exciting stuff happening here. And I haven't really done much yet, you know? I mean, very quickly you can have some great stuff going on. So I'm going to bring that all the way down. Again, I've got to define my edge here towards the bottom. All right, so we're going to go on over to the other side. We're going to do the same thing. Bring some of that into the middle. And we're going to come back when we're all done with this, with our dark green. We're going to come back with some white. Oh, let's see. This guy is really getting ready to fall down, I think. All right, so I'm going to define my edge up top, wiggle around this clock. Now, within this piece of art, we still have some simpler components, such as this round red clock. Here to the right, it can be painted very, very simply. Not everything needs to be all fussy and fancy. All right, let's go ahead and add a little bit of white and see what happens with that. You guys are troopers hanging around for this. Thank you. You didn't have to. I wouldn't have been offended. All right, so here we go. We're going to add a little bit of white, and we're going to just sort of start in the middle. We're just layering on top of what's already been done. We're just kind of globbing that on. We're going to mush it a little bit. We can come back with our green again. So we have a couple painting techniques that we do, and one of them is called a dry brush. So if this were drier, I could get my brush and really rub off most of the paint, and you just kind of come in and you just kind of, just with the side, just kind of dribble it on. All right, so if you really want your slime machine to totally look awesome, we've got to add a few dots. So what I do is I take a round paintbrush. So you know there's two types of paintbrushes. There's flat paintbrushes and there's round paintbrushes. And it's a very hotly contested world as to which one is the best. I personally like the rounds. But some people just love the flats. But I take a round paintbrush and you just dab it into your paint and you come in and you just generate some of those dots. You know what this does? This unifies your art, and if there's some boo-boo somewhere or some areas that maybe aren't quite awesomely done, everybody's just looking at the dots. So they're a great eye detractor. They don't have to be perfect. I mean, you know, I'm not forming these perfect circles, and yet they look really nice. They're reinforcing our theme. All right, let's see how we're doing. And that's it. Okay, so I was going to show real quick. Now, there I was using a bright and a dark, but over on this flask off to the left, I'm going to paint the entire thing in the lighter color because we want to have some good separation between the flask and the main part of the slime machine. So we're going to define our edge. Just bring all of this green everywhere. Just kind of feather that into the white that I've already got there. All right, so this is nice and bright. It separates great. And I'm going to add some white and some bubbles, and then it will be complete. So we can just bring that in. We can just really mush it in. We're working wet. We're not working dry. Just bring in a little bit of highlight. You know, if somebody is just, you know, scared to death about mixing paint, I tell you, you can do a great job just with a sponge. You know, just bring another color, sponging on top is fabulous. So if you don't want to do this, you don't have to do that. I'm going to come back in. I'm going to add those, some fun bubbles in there again. And then to complete all of this, like we said, we're going to do a black outline. Now, sometimes our black outlines are literally only the outline. So this more complicated item, it was chosen to be more detailed about that. It does take more time. We kind of wait till the end a lot of times in our projects, and we have outlining parties, and only people who are good at outlining are invited to the outlining parties, you know what I mean? But it does require a steady hand, that's for sure. So, if we were to look at up top, the dome part of this, I'm going to use a mustard color. And that is the color that I shared with you guys. It's called Relic Bronze. And so once again, we're going to define our edge. We're going to pull that brush off to the side. We're just going to use two colors up here. Now, we could add some white at the last. See how this paint is pretty pale? It's almost the same color as that brighter yellow below. So paint always dries darker. Boy, I tell you, where were we without projectors? Gosh, just having the ability to use a projector to get these lines drawn, that was just amazing. Okay, so we've got our nice We've got our nice dome on top, so we're going to come in with another color that I also forgot to put in your notes, and it's dark brown. It's called Toasty Brown, and this color is fabulous. And I'm just going to grab any old paintbrush. I'm grabbing a flat. So now Lauren had done a sideways approach to the dome where she took the paint and she worked it left and right. This one, I just did a real quick, just kind of following the contour of what the dome would be, just a hint at that. And you know, you don't need to be scared about the whole paint process. Because I'm telling you, by the time you add a black line around everything, maybe you come in and you take a sponge and you do a little shadow here and there and add a little bit of texturing here and there, things just look great. So don't be hard on yourselves.
Is there any reason you couldn't use a black permanent marker because they make them real white?
Oh yeah, black permanent markers are awesome. So for small stuff, I will do that, and they work really well. The problem is they run out pretty quick. So just kind of reserve that for some little tabletop items that you just want to crank out. And then for this fussy stuff, still use the paintbrush. All right, so let's see what we've got. All right, so by the time you get a black outline on that, by the time you come back and maybe sponge a little white over to the right. I tell you what, I'm not as efficient as this is Bob Ross. This is like painstakingly slow. I'm sorry. So come back in. Just take that sponge and just jazz up your art to heart's content. You can come in on this little edge right here, pull that across. On these brown pieces that have already been done, you can do a little edge. It is just amazing how quickly you can bring excitement to your art just with a little bit of time. A little bit of clock rim, come around like that. And I'm telling you guys, by the time you get your black outline on this, things just look great. Maybe you can bring a little texturing into this art. We've spent a whopping 20 minutes max on this, and things are looking pretty good. Now, you'll notice that some of ththese components, like I said, are simpler. We're keeping the clock like a piece of clip art. We're treating the base like a piece of clip art. It's not, no perspective is shown. It's very simple, and that's okay. You can mix the two styles, and it's good. So anyways, thanks for sticking around, and I wish you guys the very best of luck. You're welcome.